Hi! In this video we are going to talk about our studio light setup for our product photo shoot. So we are going to continue using those camera skills that we have built up to conduct a studio light product photo shoot. And I call it a studio light in quotes and not an actual studio light product photo shoot. The reason for that is because you all don't have actual like studio lights, but we can still use what you have to get the same effect to a certain extent. So here are some examples of photos that I took for this project here. Our goal for this project is to not showcase the object or product like we did so much with that natural light photo shoot, but we, for this one, kind of want to tell a story and make it look dramatic. So we're looking for some good shadows here and some nice contrast in the lighting. So we want to see some really nice light parts of our object and some really dark parts. And we will do this using lights or lamps or whatever we can find. And I'll talk about that more in just a minute. So your first step for this project is to set up your product or object. Choose one that is not too dark or too light. And again, you're going to use the same object that you used for the natural light photo shoot, as long as that worked well and you still have it. So if you still have it and it worked fine for your natural light photo shoot, then use that same object. Otherwise, pick something else. Your setup can be nice and simple. So you can see here that I chose a location, and I want you to do the same thing. Choose a location that has very little natural light. So that means either get away from any windows, go to sort of an interior area of your house or school, or take these photos at night when you're not getting a bunch of light streaming in from the window. To do this, I had to go into our little photo studio that we have in our class or in our school here, and that is super nice to have, but I realized that you guys don't have that option. So the only reason that I actually went in there is because there are no windows in there, so I can get away from all the natural light. So again, same thing like the first, your natural light photo shoot. An important part of this is to choose a good location. It's probably not as important as the first one, but the less natural light you have available for these photos, the more you can control the way your object is being lit. So what you're going to do in that good setting is to set up a backdrop. Here I have just a gray cloth, and it's sort of a fuzzy cloth. So you could use a blanket or a towel or a pillowcase or a t-shirt or any solid color. I prefer it to be sort of a neutral color, but you could achieve a good dramatic effect using a black colored cloth or even a white one, but a white one again is going to reflect a lot more light. So I would prefer something about this color or maybe a little bit darker, not anything too terribly light. But again, I realize that you don't have a bunch of supplies for this class specifically, so if you have to use a light colored like towel or sheet or whatever, that's okay. But like I said, the priority or my first choice would be something about this gray or maybe even darker. Again, for this project, you can use reflectors, and I put that also in quotes because you can use whatever to reflect the light that you have available. So that could be a sheet of paper, or that could be a ceramic dish. It could be a plate. Probably a bowl wouldn't work very well, but if you had a larger plate that was white, that would reflect some good light. And this kind of refers to the backdrop. So set it up on a solid colored surface, ideally the color of the background and the area that the object is sitting on, that would be the same color, so it's seamless, and it would all be one sheet of paper or cloth or whatever the case may be. Your setup continued, the lights. So I realize that you don't have studio lights at home, so you can use whatever you have available. So if you have some sort of lamp, you could use that lamp. I used for some of my photos just my flashlight on my phone. So here you can see how I have my flashlight on my phone, and I have my pop socket out, and it's just resting on actually like the edge of the chair here. So you could do the same thing. I started this way, and then I picked up my phone and I moved it around and took some other photos, just changing the lighting. So use what you have. And this photo shoot, for the lighting, it should be more dramatic than our natural light one. And we achieve that effect, when you're using some direct light source like this phone here. that results in a more dramatically lit photo than one where we have a natural light setup and there's nice even light all the way around. We want those strong shadows. Like this photo, for example, I had the overhead lights on just so I could take a picture of my setup and you could see everything really well, but this is too well lit, I would say, too evenly lit. We already did these, right? We did those with our first set of product photos. So let's get something a little bit more dramatic than that. Here's your reflector reminder. So again, that's what a reflector normally would look like, but you can use one that is just a piece of paper or whatever the case may be, something nice and light. It doesn't, like on that same note, it doesn't have to be like white either. You could experiment with the idea, sorry, I'm going to go back to my slideshow a little bit, but you could experiment with the idea of different colors reflecting. I have one of these portrait reflectors, and mine actually has different surfaces that I can swap out. So there's a white surface, a silver surface, and a gold surface. So you can experiment with that idea too. Go ahead, try some new things. So here's the end of our setup. So just to kind of check off all of the items on the list, the first thing is a good location with very little natural light. Okay, once you got that, worry about the backdrop. Again, use whatever you have on hand, that will work well. Make sure you have reflectors on hand to use for some of your photos. You don't need to use them for all of them. Okay, and then your studio lights, like I mentioned, those can be lamps or your flashlight on your phone or whatever the case may be, whatever you have available. Okay, so camera settings. We want to make sure we're not using the flash for this setup. The flashes that you have built into your cameras are super harsh if you use it just the way it is. We'll talk about using those for some other photo shoots as we go along here, but for this one, definitely don't use that one. If you keep your camera set on manual mode and don't change it to auto or anything, then that flash should stay down. It shouldn't automatically pop up. Here I have some camera settings that are a good place to start, but you probably don't want to keep them this way the whole time. For example, I started my photos with these settings, and then I ended up changing my ISO from auto to 400, I think. When I had it set on auto, I was finding that the camera compensated too much for the dark lighting conditions, and it was making my photos too bright. It doesn't know that I wanted those sort of dramatic changes in light, so it was compensating for that. So I ended up changing this. You definitely could bump this down to the lowest that your camera goes. I think for the most part, yours should go down to f4.0. So you could try bumping that down. You can, again, adjust the shutter speed too, according to your lighting conditions. So your camera settings should change according to your specific conditions, but also according to the type of lighting effect that you're trying to achieve. So make sure you experiment with these settings, definitely. So taking your photos, what you want to do is you want to set your camera to the specific settings that you want to start with, take some photos, see how they look, and then adjust accordingly. So you're going to adjust not only your camera settings, but also the lighting. Like this photo on the left, that's kind of nice and evenly lit, and that's not exactly what we're going for in this project. So I would kind of try to aim something more towards this or these. When you're lighting, obviously my light for this one here, for the middle one and the one on the right, my light was coming farther from the side, and then we get a lot more changes in value. So we're seeing these nice light highlights as well as these deep shadows. And also we see a lot more of the texture of the object in these photos versus this first one because of the even lighting on this first one, okay? As far as your camera angle, so the purpose of this photo shoot isn't necessarily to take a nice evenly lit picture of your object, right? Here we are trying to achieve these nice harsh, that's kind of an oxymoron, but nice harsh shadows. We want it to be pretty dramatic. So for this part, this should be a photo that kind of tells a story. You don't need to like make up that story or anything, but obviously these are more dramatic than those first ones we took again. So I didn't vary the camera angle too much in my photos, but you definitely could do that. I just tried to use some creative cropping, so not all of my object is fitting within the frame of my photo here in all of them. Like these two on the sides, and then this one in the middle, I'm trying to capture a little bit of that flare that we're getting from the light source. So things like that. Feel free to experiment with these. So experiment with everything, the lighting, the camera angle, and the backdrop or setup. So just try out a bunch of different things. If it works, great. If it doesn't work, try something new. So what you're going to do then after you take all your photos is you're going to create a Google slide presentation containing those photos and submit it. So it should have at least 15 photos from this setup. Okay, so you should have 15 from that natural light photo shoot and 15 from the studio light. And again, same thing as the first setup, the natural light one. I don't want 15 or more of the same photo from the same spot with the same settings. Okay, do some experimenting. So once you have all of your photos, decide which one is your favorite and choose one of those and submit that one separately as your best photo. And again, all of these should just be straight out of the camera. Don't worry about editing any of these. We will talk about that next. All right, that is it. Good luck with that.